Hello everyone, this is Steve Goad, and this video is brought to you by artworkmentor.com. Any custom brushes, software, settings that I may have used, I'll be sure to include that in the blog post whenever I upload it. But for the time being, I'll stick to the details, the specifics to the drawing. I am using ArtRage Studio or ArtRage 3 Studio Pro, and it's going to be a dragon head, more of a concept, not really a polished piece. I am using the marker tool right now to kind of sketch in the basic shapes, some tones here and there. I do like using it because you can adjust the opacity of the marker tool, and it creates a nice build a building feel to it. Like you can lay down a darker tone, use a lighter tone to put in some details, and then go right back over it with a darker tone, and you can still see uh, those tones. So it has a nice, almost like a glazing technique. Those of you familiar with glazing with oils, that's pretty much kind of the feel, and that's what I like about it. Um, I picked a dragon head because you just can't go wrong with a dragon. Um, The cool thing about a dragon is you can see so many. You can Google a dragon on the internet and see so many of them, and they're just the anatomy is the same, but there's so many different variations of them. It's pretty awesome. Right now, I'm on a separate layer right here where I blocked in the horn and the neck and these darker tones. I'm using the watercolor, and I really like using the watercolor and then switching immediately to the palette knife. I have the hotkey set up between the different keys just for it helps to switch on the fly. Anybody that's used Photoshop, and I mean, they know that hotkeys are pretty important. It's just so nice to lay down something with the marker tool, switch to the palette knife, and then blend it with a airbrush or watercolor brush. If you notice in the upper left, I've got a tone chart. It's good to keep the tones and colors consistent. Otherwise, um, you start running into areas that should be dark, but they're not as dark, and so it's nice to keep your values visible so you can keep them consistent as you work. If you notice those textures that I put on around the neck area and jaw, I use the sticker tool for that. Those of you familiar with Photoshop, that's the sticker tool is a lot like what we see in Photoshop, and you can really customize your brushes to react a certain way. I think you can even, I haven't done it, but I saw an option that you can import your Photoshop brushes into ArtRage, so that's pretty cool. At this point, I'm still kind of working out his head and jaw area. Um, I did use, I did look at some Komodo dragon, monitor type lizard. Even he kind of almost looks crocodile, but I mean, that wasn't my purpose. But it's good to draw from real life. If you can take the textures and certain features from real life and apply it to fantasy, I think you have something really cool there. It's good to find a nice balance with realism and fantasy. Opinions vary, of course. I really like using these different tools in ArtRage because I try to find a nice balance between hard, soft, and textures. Um, if you go too texture, if you go with too much texture, it's kind of it has a sense of being overworked. I personally like the style that you can see brushstrokes, some blending, really detailed areas, and then some loose areas. I've always loved that style. Again, the background I filled in was with the sticker tool. I'm using the airbrush right now to darken in some areas. I'll change the airbrush tool to multiply. That keeps the textures visible, without losing a lot of your textures, and plus it'll darken them while keeping the textures. So you can tell I'm still not quite sure how to develop that jaw line, and even at this point it does look a little off. So there's something missing there. But later on, I'll be sure you'll see that I've changed it. Um, don't be afraid to experiment and paint something really quick over something you've already worked on. I think what I've caught myself doing is if I focus too much on one certain area and then I don't want to lose those details, you run the risk of having something that looks off. um, I don't want to lose the work that I've done, so then I keep trying to work through it, and then it's just kind of a love-hate thing sometimes. But never be afraid to just paint over something or just totally delete and erase something. So I'm using, every time I say I'm using this tool, I've already switched. I mean, that's just the way I work. I find it works really well. Every little tool has a different look and feel. So if I can switch as I'm going or as I'm working, that it creates a nice texture, and it prevents having to take a texture. I know some people take they just work on the values and then they go and they download something from cgtextures.com and then just kind of overlay it. Those are really cool techniques. Sometimes and I use them too whenever I can, but sometimes I just like to do things by hand. Maybe that's not the right way, but it just feels right. So if you can create textures as you go, then it kind of skips out on a step. It may not be as fast. And that's another thing is I don't really care about speed. I want things to look right. I know some people are. It's important for it for you to jot out something within an hour and it look awesome. And I think that's every artist's goal is to be quick and efficient. But if I had to choose between one or the other, I'd choose quality over speed any day. So let's see. Yeah, you can tell I use the airbrush for any type of highlights and any kind of shading, like hard line shading. The marker tool works really well, like that shading that I did on the horn area. The eraser tool works really well. Like how I took the notches out of his horn. I find that if it's easier to do a solid stroke, and then take your eraser to cut out some areas, it's easier that way than to use the brush to put those details in there. I don't know, that's weird, but so right here is where I was saying don't be afraid to just paint something over. I wasn't really happy with the around his eye and jaw area, so I just painted those extra horns in there, like right there. So we're just about done here, and I want to thank you for downloading this video, and I plan on doing more, hopefully more in depth, and if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll do my best to accommodate you, but I'd like to thank you again, and we'll see you next time.